My name is Silas, and my friends and colleagues know two very important things about me. I'm a conductor, and I love coffee, especially espresso. No matter where I travel in the world, the first thing I try to do is find the best coffee shop and learn about the local coffee drinking habits. If I can, I try to meet up with old friends or make new ones in a coffee shop, of course, so we can talk about life, art, music, or whatever's on our minds. I found that there's no better way to get to know a conductor a little better than by having coffee with the maestro. Today I'm excited to have coffee with my buddy Dan Boothe. He's the music director of Symphonicity Orchestra in Virginia Beach, principal conductor of the International Composers Festival in the United Kingdom, commander and conductor of the U.S. Air National Guard Band of the Southwest in Texas, and he's on the faculty at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. Oh yeah, and he's expecting his fifth child in a couple of weeks. I better call him quick before he gets busy. Good morning, Dan. How are you?
Good morning, Silas. It's great to see you.
I see you've got your morning beverage. I'm drinking espresso like always, and you're even branding a little bit there with your Symphonicity mug.
Indeed, we have our own mug, so I guess that means we're a big deal, right? If you have your own mug.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, this
Probably
is
the only orchestra that's got a mug. Oh wait, no, that's
it's my conductor's mug shot.
No, get out of here.
I'm a coffee drinker like you. I have to start the day with at least one, but usually 2 cups of. We have whole bean that we've been grinding for years, and what we're using now is whole bean from Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
And we have different ways of drinking it. We're always changing up a little bit, but we have a stovetop stainless steel percolator that I love to use if you're into that taste.
Is that like a Belletti type deal? Okay.
Well, it's like Faberware or whatever, but it's a larger stainless steel, and it's a percolator. So it percolates up, and it recycles the coffee, which you have to be careful that you don't burn it or get, too much going on there. But the old electric percolators, which I grew up having, tasting at my grandmother's, for example, tend to, overbrew. But if you do it on the stove with a stovetop percolator, you can really control it. And also we do like a pour over, 1 cup pour over style with a new gooseneck kettle that I have, so you can control the pour. And it's got a little gauge on it, so you can make sure the temperature of the water is just right. And we have French press that we do as well, so we kind of mix it up here.
Okay, so you've got a variety of fancy coffee tastes, and I never judge anyone if they don't drink fancy coffee or if they don't make it a special way. But I really like to hear people's routines and the thing that they can't live without or that they have to do every day. So I have to tell you that I love the taste of espresso, but I maybe haven't said this in any of my interviews, that one of the things I like about it is the ritual in the morning.
Ah, that's an interesting point.
It's a very short ritual.
Like about the percolator.
Sorry?
That's what I like about the percolator. There's a lot of different steps involved, and it's even the clanking of the metal when you put it in, and there's a lot that goes into it. Tell me more about the ritual, what it does for you with espresso.
Well, it's a very simple and a fast ritual, but I have to make sure there's distilled water in the thing, and it has to be distilled. And I don't know how important that is, but for me, that's a part of the ritual. And then you've got I've got the canister of grounds, and you have to scoop it in there, and then tamping it down. That's a really important thing. And
similar to with my pipe, I have to tamp down the tobacco a little bit.
Yeah, and it's not it doesn't really equate to like conducting or any other thing in life. There's not a great analogy for it, but it just has to be done just so. And so that like a little bit of attention to detail. And if a couple of grounds get out of I don't know what the thing is called, the little gizmo that you put it, but I have to brush it off with my fingers. It's a whole thing. Sometimes if I'm not happy with the tamp, I'll just dump it out and start over. And so I just like that I start my day off paying such close attention to a little thing that's ultimately not that important. But once I get it tamped down and then I get it put in there, then it brews and it's pretty fast, and I drink it down in about 30 seconds. And then cleaning up and lining everything up and getting it ready for the next day is also part of the ritual. It's a weird thing. I should probably make working out should be my morning ritual, but it's not.
One of my favorite scenes of Mr. Bean, because I'm a big Mr. Bean fan. Have you ever seen the scene where he is or have you ever watched, I should say, the scene when he is late for work, but he needs to get his coffee? Did you ever see that, how he put that together?
No, I don't think
He's
so.
running behind schedule, but he needs to have his coffee. It's part of his morning routine. So he hustles into the kitchen and he scoops in the coffee, like a scoop in his mouth. And I think he puts a little cream in his mouth too. And then he takes the hot water and has like a little gooseneck, whatever, and he pours it into his mouth. I mean, and he gulps it. And I just sort of love the the idea of that it's so essential to some of us that
Yeah.
you take chances even if you must to have it. Now, if you can't have your espresso at home, if you're out and not able to sit down, if you're just out, on the road, for example, and my wife, and she's in a situation, she goes to Starbucks. She's a Starbucks person. Is the same for you, or do you have an alternative? Because I will drink Starbucks. I like their flat white, but I tend to go to Dunkin' Donuts if I want coffee when I'm on the road.
I'm told that Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's and some other places like that have good coffee. But I can't drink, I almost can't drink anything except espresso. And sometimes the only time I'll drink coffee that's not an espresso is if I'm at somebody's house or something and I'm just being polite, really. If somebody offers me coffee and I go, "Oh, do you have espresso?" They always roll their eyes and go like, "No, we don't have espresso." So then they bring the black coffee out and I put some sugar in it and I drink it and I pretend to like it. But but no, my go-to if I'm out of the house or traveling, I love finding coffee shops in new towns or wherever I am. And so in the cities I go to often where family or I have work or something, I know all the coffee shops. And I like to rotate a little bit. I've got a couple of favorites, but I like to go to a different one each time. But I know that wherever I travel, it used to be wherever I traveled in America, but now it's almost anywhere in the world you can find a Starbucks. And you're
Mm,
not supposed to, if you're a coffee snob, you're not supposed to go to Starbucks, but it's consistent and it's good. An
yeah.
espresso in a Starbucks is pretty good and it tastes the same at every Starbucks in the world. You know exactly what you're getting. And for 250 or $3 or something. So
That's a good point. Do you feel that your taste in coffee, and not just in coffee, but in the experience of coffee, which is in many ways what you're describing, right? Whether it be the ritual or it be the adventure. Do you think any of that parallels your tastes in music?
I never thought about it, but maybe,
I'm here for the
maybe.
questions, right? Or no, I'm sure put that.
Yeah, who's interviewing who here? Well, it's officially not an interview. We're just having a coffee chat, right? That's funny because I like different kinds of coffee, and it has to be good coffee, but there's lots of different types of good coffee, I guess. Good espresso. And it could be served to you an infinite number of ways, really. It could be on a little tray. And if you've traveled around the world like you have, then you've seen it in different styles of cups and in glasses and served with weird things on the side, like a cookie or a chocolate or some fruit or, a bubbly water or flat water. And so the short answer is, yeah, I think it shows that I like simple things, but delivered in a nice way, presented in a nice way. And so that does kind of inform the way I like my music. I don't like fast food music and I don't
Right
like
there, you
fast
go.
food coffee. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm sort of getting that from you, and it seems that there's something to be said for sometimes less is more, and espresso in a way offers that analogy, right? I mean, it's not about having the big gulp of
yeah,
watered down, tan water or something, but even a small amount of this just deliciously rich and fulfilling, boldly tasting espresso probably does more than many big gulps could ever do.
yeah. And there's also something that I think, I mean, espresso is not a fine thing that is only for certain, for rich people or something like that. But it does show that you've gone out of your way to get it. You can't get it anywhere, or I should say, you can't get it everywhere. You have to go to a special place to get it or have a special machine to make it. And so it just shows like a little bit of a desire for something slightly finer. And then, as my dad likes to point out, if you do the math by volume, that espresso is like one of the most expensive things on the planet. my,
All right.
my dad is a typical, he's very, he criticizes me for being a spendthrift, but he's like, that stuff costs 15 times more than gasoline, right? I'm like, yeah, but you know, I need it.
Right, and you don't want to drink gasoline.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
Gasoline tastes terrible in the morning. It's
So now,
dangerous to keep in the house. Yeah.
so all of this, has to be, continue to think in sort of analogous ways here, but I think it's appropriate. And that is, how do you take your love of espresso and analogous to your love of good quality classical music, and how do you get people interested in something that's maybe kind of niche, or it's not as mainstream as McDonald's coffee, right? But you feel it's just as important as for people to experience it. How do you do that at the same time, by preserving its qualities and not sort of selling out and undercutting its value, but at the same time make it more appealing to the masses? Like, there's just that combination, right? What do you think
Yeah.
about that, whether it's coffee or music, or how the two might relate?
I don't know. I think a lot of a lot of conductors and music directors are struggling with that, not just this year. 2020 is a special year, obviously, but in general, how do we take this thing that we know is really great, but most people don't have a lot of experience with, and how do we show them how great it is and make them love it too? And for me, the answer is a little bit different from most people, and that is that I just don't force it down people's throat. Like, if you don't like espresso, that's fine with me, and if you don't want to try it, that's okay too. You like something else, that's great. You do your thing, and I'll do mine. And I feel almost the same way about music. I love music so much that I almost, except for coffee, I almost don't talk about anything else. And all my friends are musicians, and I'm just constantly raving about music. And so I think that your natural enthusiasm, and you're a guy by the way, I think of as very enthusiastic about music. So I suspect that your natural enthusiasm just rubs off on people, and people who like music will say like, wow, that guy really loves it. Like, I want what he's having. And people that maybe have never been to an orchestra concert, for example, might say, I want to check this out. This guy is like nuts about it. He just really is really enthusiastic. And so I don't know if I believe in leading from the front, like us military guys. We'll talk about that later, I think. But I believe in leading by example, and I believe in modeling behavior more than preaching or telling people, more than telling someone what they should be doing. I like to do the right thing, and then other people will see that and maybe jump on board. And so I do that with music too. I never tell anyone you should. I just say, this is what I do because it's amazing, and then maybe they'll join in.
So what I'm kind of distilling from that, to borrow your word earlier, of your important water attribute for coffee, it sounds like exposure and passion are two things that you think are really important. I'd actually have to concur completely. That's really what it is. If people have exposure and then they also see or experience passion, a lot of people take an interest in it, even if it falls outside of their normal realm of either routine or personal interest. And I think it's because with the sort of the noise of life and the humdrum of things and so forth, passion is just exceptionally interesting when you run across something like that. And I had an interesting convergence of this with a friend of mine who I went to high school with many years ago and I had not seen, and I don't know if it was 15 or 20 years or something, but he had sort of been following me in the work that I'm doing with orchestras and music. And as you pointed out, he sensed a real strong passion that I have for it, and it really intrigued him. And he came out to Virginia Beach, Virginia to see one of my concerts. In fact, it was Verdi's Requiem. So he picked a pretty good one. It was really a great concert. And afterwards, he said, we've got to talk. And so we did. He happens to be the brewmaster for the Three Notch Brewery here in Virginia, and makes delicious craft beer. And he said, and we had dinner together, he said, your passion for this is like my passion for craft beer. And I believe so much that if people could try more craft beer and just see the whole world that's open to them, and they would find so many opportunities for, ways of personally relating, or et cetera. And of course, I feel this way about music. And then we decided to kind of put our heads together. Well, anyway, months later, we had a beer that was made for Symphonicity we premiered here last year. We had a season last year with Symphonicity here in Virginia Beach called Boothe to the Future. Every single Masterworks concert opened with a transcription by Johann Sebastian Bach. And we had this beer made by Three Notch Brewery called Ach called Bocktoberfest. That's right, Bocktoberfest.
Like BACH, Bachtoberfest?
Yeah,
Okay.
Bocktoberfest. And
Okay.
it was sold all throughout Virginia Beach and Wegmans, and it was, at our concerts and everything else. It was a huge hit. It was a really neat collaboration with us and the
Oh.
Sandler Center for the Performing Arts in the city of Virginia Beach. It's just so cool bringing beer together, craft beer with classical music, because when it comes down to it, it's that exposure, it's the passion, it's being the best version of whatever that thing is. Starbucks, for example, is maybe one of the best versions of what that is, right? I mean, so that's worth pointing out. And maybe McDonald's makes the best of what it is for its coffee, et cetera. But I think there's something to be said for that, rather than necessarily judging that only one or two or three different types of things are what people need to be exposed to. I think the best version of anything is interesting in a way, right? So when it comes to fast food, French fries is one of my all-time favorites. It's not a French cuisine of any sort, but I mean, who doesn't love some delicious French fries? So, but they have to be like the great kind. It has to meet your expectations to the highest order. And I think whatever that is, from whatever discipline, whatever art, whatever food, whatever anything, it attracts people, because it makes us a little bit better every time we learn something through that exposure and through that passion.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, there's just something about being discerning in your tastes for whatever, whether it's food or movies or TV shows or pop music or
MREs.
Or MREs. Yeah, I'm not sure if I found the good MRE yet. I mean, we all love the chili mac, I think, but
well, that's our segue for our viewers who aren't familiar.
Yeah, so anyone who's watching this who doesn't know you or me or both of us very well, we have this in common, that we both served as full-time active duty officers in the military, Dan in the Air Force and me in the Army. And then what year did you join the Air Force, by the way, Dan? It must have been around 2010?
It's 2009.
2009. Okay, so I joined in 2011. So more or less this, you're a couple years ahead of me, but we started around the same time. We served for about the same time, and then we both got out in 2017. Am I saying?
Yeah, we
right?
both. I guess we both left active duty at the same time.
Yeah, we both left active duty, and we went into the National Guard. So I serve as the commander of the 44th Army Band in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is a 1 weekend a month job and 2 weeks in the summer. And you are let me get the title right, flight commander of the Air National Guard Band of the Southwest in Fort Worth, Texas.
Well, that's almost correct, except I'm just not there yet.
Yeah.
I'm just finished my Chief of Public Affairs role at the 113th Wing Air National Guard up in Washington, D.C., and I'm sort of in transition now. So I'm waiting to be gained by Texas for that new assignment, and that's a very short assignment, because really it's just a few months of a job until I take on the real job that I was hired for, which is to be the commander and the conductor for that ensemble. So that'll start in January, when the current commander, Lieutenant Colonel Patterson, retires.
Yeah, exciting times. So have you even reported to Texas yet, or is that job so new you haven't even gone?
That's right. I've done some virtual drilling with them, and it's been great to be connected to them virtually. But no, I'm not officially belonging to them yet. As you know, it takes a while on guard time to get all the paperwork done.
The military, the government in general is notorious for red tape and delays and all that stuff. But in the military, we get very comfortable with hurrying up and waiting.
This is true.
I'm sure you say hurry up and wait in the Air Force too. That's a famous Army catchphrase. Well,
yes, but we always attribute it to the Army.
but the thing that thanks. Yeah. But the thing I think that some people might find interesting, or maybe terribly boring, I don't know, is that this year, 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, you and I each got called to do things for our respective units that were not musical. And that's just part of the job when you sign up for the military. To be a musician, you say, I want to be a musician and I want to serve my country, or my state in this case. And then suddenly a crisis happens, a natural disaster or a pandemic. And then they say, we need you, get down here right now. And you've got to go sit in this, man the phones over here and do this paperwork and help get these trucks loaded with food and this stuff that has nothing to do with music. And that is at times terribly rewarding, at other times somewhat frustrating. So I know that you were called up there to Washington, D.C. to do some public affairs work. And did you have fun? Did you learn anything? Did you get anything out of it? Did it make you a better person, or did you just do your time and get out of there?
I will say that, at the time in June when it was an emergency order, and we were all activated to Washington, D.C., given the situation that was unfolding there. I will say that those few weeks up there were unlike anything of my entire military career.
Yeah.
It was more intense than my deployment than Afghanistan or anywhere else I traveled to different operating bases in the Middle East. It was absolutely incredible in terms of its intensity and the complexity, the difficulties, not only for the job that we had, but for the civilians that were involved, for the law enforcement involved, for the politicians, of course, who were navigating that space. The entire situation was unbelievable. And I guess I would say I came away with, one of the big takeaways I came away with is just how impressed I was and proud I am of the National Guard members, because what I saw transpire in a short amount of time was just remarkable. And here's the thing about it, and I think this is an important point for all aspects of military service. When you look at someone who serves in the military, it's important to recognize that I think the most important aspect of their value to our society is that they're there when you need them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes there are opinions about how the military is used, and they're totally understandable, because everyone has different opinions on the use of these individuals here and around the world. And I have those opinions, and you have those opinions. I'm sure we all do. And where we may differ on that from different times and different issues and different circumstances, one thing that I think we should remain somewhat unified on is how important it is to have that here at home, to have those trained individuals to help out in our communities, to help out with disasters, and to help in situations where there needs to be that level of support. These are citizens. These are people who have a life outside of uniform, and then they volunteer to serve in uniform specifically for when you need that. And I think that's really important. And it may not be when this person needs it, they may not want it, but then eventually they're the ones that need it, and they're going to be glad they have it. So I just think it's really important that we have it. And what I learned in this operation was just how capable the National Guard is. Phenomenal. And these are our soldier citizens, airmen citizens, et cetera, that just do great work for our country and our communities all over.
Yeah, I was really proud of the work we did in New Mexico. We were activated to deliver food, water, and medical supplies. Mostly that was our job. I'm not affiliated with public affairs in the Army. It's kind of side note. It's interesting to those of you who are interested in military music. The Army calls musicians part of our soldier support operations. So they're aligned with human resources experts, and the Air Force aligns bandsmen with public affairs, which, personal opinion here, no, my disclaimer, this does not reflect the opinion of the Department of Defense. The Air Force does a little smarter thing because musicians are obviously a part of public affairs. I think most of my work ends up being public affairs. But short story, I was involved in this big operation delivering food, medical supplies, and water. And my personal job was sitting in the headquarters doing paperwork. But out there on the front lines, musicians from my band were operating forklifts, putting food on the trucks, driving the trucks, delivering masks and other supplies to hospitals and retirement homes, and going into facilities and cleaning them out, sterilizing them, and doing that like boots on the ground, frontline stuff, fighting coronavirus, the spread of the coronavirus.
Yeah, that's right. We've been doing that as well, helping out with the testing and monitoring the facilities and all that.
I was just extremely proud to see musicians who signed up to do music saying like, yeah, I'll do that. You need someone to clean out a hospital wing? Sure. Like, we'll do it. These guys and I will do it. And I think I had 10 musicians from the band that were activated at that time. And so I'm really, really proud of them for doing it. Now, we haven't seen each other since early March because of the pandemic. We've been doing our jobs in separate places. So in September, we'll see each other for the first time.
Yeah, this idea of the military service, and then given our other career profiles, I'm kind of curious to explore that just for a few minutes further and ask you, do you know of any other orchestra conductors, professional orchestra conductors that serve in the military?
There must be.
I'm sure there must be, but for example, I think of you
Yeah,
And
John Williams comes to mind.
well, from then, but at the current time, I think of you for now. In terms of my Rolodex, you're the one that I have on there that fits that profile as well as myself. It's an unusual pairing, is it not? And
It is. I think, especially for orchestra conductors, there are probably a number of like band director, college band directors, and professional band directors out there who did military time. My boss, the chair of the music department at Washburn University, he was an Air Force bandsman, incidentally, not a band commander, but a bandsman. And I mean, I have a feeling that out there, and especially in academia and players and professional orchestras, there are a lot of ex-military people who used to serve active duty. But in the orchestra world, it's pretty rare because there aren't that many. I mean, there's one orchestra in the Marines, there's one orchestra in the Air Force, there's one orchestra in the Army, and that's it.
right,
Whereas there are hundreds of military bands, right?
right,
So
that's right.
yeah, you and I might be the two only.
Well, and I think it's interesting as well because, in some respects, because it's an unknown kind of attribute of someone's profile, like, wow, you're in the military, but you conduct orchestras, it may be misunderstood. It may be an uncertain, you
Yeah.
know, part of someone's experience, but I find that it's a great added value. And what I've learned through those experiences and the kind of leader that I developed into because of that, wow, I think it's helped me, enabled me to be a much better leader as a conductor of an orchestra. Because really, so much about conducting is a lot more than just moving, right? It's a lot more than what people see, and
Yes.
a lot of that, lot more, are the things that I learned about and developed to a very high degree through my military training and experience.
Yeah, I found that there's a lot of books on leadership out there in the world. You could go to any bookstore and find there's shelves and shelves of them. And I don't know how good they all are. I haven't read them all, but there's a lot of great leadership books. But if you pull out that manual in the Army, we have a one regulation that's just called leadership, Army leadership. And that regulation is like black and white bullet points, no flurry, no fluffy language or beautiful prose, just like this is how you're a leader. And if you follow that, it kind of works. It's not gorgeous. It's not beautiful. Like I said, it's not elegant or fluffy, but uh, it's just like a black and white list of things that leaders do and don't do. And then if you apply that to some of the more beautifully written books that are written by civilian leaders, like one of my favorite is Simon Sinek, for example.
Mm.
And you can sort of marry those two worlds and come up with a really great leadership philosophy.
Truly, yeah, it's very applicable, and I'm grateful for it. But I never expected it would happen. It wasn't like in my sights. Most of my life and career has been an unexpected journey of opportunities, and really the military path was just like that. I won't say it happened by accident, but it wasn't exactly something that I grew up saying, "Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to do this." I was spending hours and hours a day practicing and performing all the time, and was really involved in the artistic side of what I was doing as a young musician. And that type of musician or that type of person wouldn't necessarily think about uniforms and in training on the M4s and deploying and it, by the way, and it wasn't that I was super excited about. It was the music. I was drawn to the military because of the music. The musicians in the Air Force bands, which I can speak to specifically, are just so amazing and fantastic. And what I loved about the military music mission is that you have professional players, fantastic full-time musicians on the active duty side that do tremendous work, and they perform at a very high level of artistry. And yet, the sum of their efforts is in many cases for a purpose greater than just the art itself. It's in service. It's in service. That idea to me of something outside of just the bubble of our artistic world was very appealing, because to me that related to maybe a greater, more expanded view of just humanity, how you look at your community through service and through giving and sacrifice and helping and protecting others. To me, it was just a fascinating marriage, and I was very drawn to that, and I still am. I really like the fact that now being in the Guard, but still having my career in music as a composer and a conductor and adjudicator, et cetera, I'm able to still have this opportunity to serve and to serve the military musical mission while also having the civilian career on the artistic side and trying to bring that same level of discipline and that same quality of my sacrifice and service, but to the art as well as on the other side to the message. And so it's really neat.
Yeah, and I also was attracted by that notion of service. Like I do this thing pretty well, and I get to do it for my country. That's what ultimately made me accept the job in the Army. It's also kind of the thing that made me want to leave. I won't speak for you, but for me, I would never disparage my time as an active duty Army officer. I really enjoyed it, but then ultimately I decided to leave. But it kept me in the National Guard, because when I left the Army, I could have just made a hard break and said, like, I'm going to go do civilian music now and get into academia and do the thing I was doing before. But I said, oh, but I just loved the service part. How can I do that, but also have a civilian career? And so it kept me, sort of invested in the National Guard. And so I'm grateful for that experience, and that I still have that in my life. And also now I have Brahms and Beethoven, which you don't get much of in the military.
Gosh, that's
and
really
Stravinsky and John Cage and everything else too that you don't have in the military.
I remember shortly after coming to Symphonicity a couple years ago, after leaving active duty in the Air Force, I had just been serving at the premier band and orchestra up in Washington, D.C. for the Air Force. And prior to that, spent 3 years in the Pentagon and some very important work for the Secretary of the Air Force. And that was a great opportunity. It was a non-musical one, but it was a required sort of opportunity for advancement career-wise that I was highly encouraged to accept. And it was a really interesting experience. I learned a lot. But my point being that when I had the opportunity to come here to Virginia Beach after that search and winning the job here at Symphonicity, which incidentally, the conductor who was before me, the founder of the orchestra, Maestro David Kunkel, is a former Navy band conductor.
That's
so
right.
there was already like a precedent here in some regard, which I thought was interesting. And then you had some board members who were retired military officers and so forth. And I just felt like there was something inviting about that. And it's definitely a big military town here in Hampton Roads, one of the largest really in the country. All of that made me feel like it could be a good fit. But when I got here after accepting the position and was spending, my many hours really working exactly on that, I was doing Brahms. I was doing Brahms' First Symphony, my very first concert, and doing Verdi's Requiem. Months later, Beethoven 9. We did that my first year here. But being in the score and spending so much time immersing myself in it, and then thinking back, I would randomly think back to just a couple years ago, I was putting this kind of time and sweat equity into presentations in the Pentagon.
Also important, however, not as artistic.
I have to tell you that there's a great deal of gratitude that I have for all of the different experiences that I've had in and out of music, but I'm especially grateful right now that I am doing what I'm doing.
So we could talk for hours, you and I. We've done it before, so I won't let us go on too long. But I just want to say, so you are the music director of Symphonicity, which must be relatively time consuming. You just got a new post in the UK as artistic director. Am I getting the title right?
It's a principal conductor for the International Composers Festival. Yeah.
Okay, you're on faculty at Old Dominion University there in Norfolk.
Right. Yes.
Sounds like what you need is a new project, like maybe another child to come along.
Well, and we have another one coming any moment now, due on September 10th, but all the other 4 kids have been early. So number 5, we'll see. And I'm also working on a commission actually from one of the Air Force bands. The one in Texas has actually commissioned me for substantial work that I'm working on. And all of my adjudication, I do a lot of adjudicating, that is unfortunately turned off right now due to COVID. But I'm very busy doing lots of things, lots of different types of music making and sharing.
Yeah.
It's a really good path to be on.
Congratulations on everything, especially the upcoming number 5. Do you know if it's a boy or a girl yet, or do you care?
We care, but we never find out. We always wait.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's going to be exciting. You better get that commission done before September 10th, I guess.
if I look a little tired, it's because I've been putting a lot of extra time into it, trying to catch up. You're exactly right.
Yeah, no, you look great. Hey, Dan, I wish we could spend all day talking. I really like chatting with you, but thanks for having coffee with me.
It's been great. I appreciate the opportunity. You and I have had a really neat career of intersecting paths, I guess. I've been watching you ever since you first came onto the military side, and you caught my eye because you're one of those, and by that I mean in the singular, that has this fantastic orchestral background as a conductor, and yet here you are serving in uniform. And then who would have expected that as the years went on, you and I would actually be following each other here and there in different ways, and
Yeah.
that's been really kind of neat.
Yeah, it's great to keep running into the same people over and over again. And I know we'll see each other in person again eventually.
Indeed, hopefully in person with our coffee.
Yeah, that's right. Cheers. Thanks so much.
Thanks.